Hey, it's DeagleBeagle. So today I want to look at the best Imprison Trick Room users. Now, the best one is probably Indeedee because you can imprison some really common moves and it's still good outside of imprisoning their Trick Room. So you have other Pokemon like Polteageist, which it probably isn't as bad as people think it is, but I did test it. It didn't do that well, but it would probably do a lot better now in the current metagame with Strength Sap. But overall, I wouldn't say it would do great. So I wouldn't use something like that. Uh, and Miss Magius, by the way, you can if you're running Imprison Trick Room on a common Pokemon, then I would use some speed on it. But on these ones, you don't. You could run different moves than me too. Like Icy Wind, you need if you're gonna use Icy Wind, use at least 128 speed to outspeed Meowscarada. Miss Magius can be compared to Gengar, which can also run Imprison Trick Room. So I really should be listing Gengar, but Gengar to me, with it being weak to poison, and I mean it does have it is a ghost type with Sash, but it being weak to poison, it'll leave you at 1 HP and then they can finish you off with something else a lot easier than if you use something like Miss Magius or any of these other Pokemon. So what some people do is they run like either Sludge Bomb or Shadow Ball for the third move, and then they might either run Icy Wind or Haze or something. So they usually run Timid, even though I personally prefer Modest because you can one-shot Goldangos and stuff with it. So you could use other moves like Icy Wind or Sludge Bomb or whatever too. But really, and these EVs are kind of random. I don't want to show the EVs I normally use. So, and you could use Colbur instead of Safety Goggles or some other item, but Safety Goggles to me is pretty good because you have that plus Hariyama, and you wall their Amoonguss and Trick Room, and go through Rage Powder, but mostly to not get spored. Now, this Pokemon can run Mystical Fire and other moves, but yeah, I mean, Miss Magius could do pretty well outside of Trick Room. It's like Gengar, except it has one less stab, but also has less weaknesses, even though it doesn't have as many resistances possibly as Gengar does, with it being Ghost Poison. Now, also one of the I should say these are probably the top 6 Imprisoned Trick Roomers, but Oranguru, Polteageist, and Miss Magius and Gengar are the worst 4. Like Oranguru is good, but I haven't found it's not that good. It's like mostly good with, so I guess maybe it's not even good. It's it seems good on paper, but when you're using instruct, you want a Pokemon that has coverage versus everything. That's why I used to use a Ringaroo Gigalith, but they don't have Gigalith anymore. So it's like the only other things you would probably use with it are either Torkoal, which that can lose to either Wide Guard or a Flash Fire or something, or you would have to use like Mudsdale or whatever. And normally I do recommend inner focus if you're using Imprison, but outside of that, you could use Telepathy and instruct an Earthquake or instruct a Rock Slide with Mudsdale. You can also use Do Dunsparce with Oranguru for its Hyperdrill or Serene Grace Rock Slide, and you can get a lot of flinches with that. But anyways, um, this I'd say is the second best Imprisoned Trick Roomer on most teams, because if you're using Ferreg on a team, you probably are using hard Trick Room. Like The main point of Farig over Indeedee in the first place is Armor Tail. Now, how is that different from Psychic Surge? Well, Armor Tail allows you to not be fake outed or hit by priority all game long as Frigg is alive, but it's mostly to enable you to use fake out but not your opponent. So if you're not using Hariyama with Frigg, you probably shouldn't be using Frigg. You probably should be using Indeedee because they have same typing, and Indeedee's Psychic Surge in a sense gives it more special attack because it's primarily going to use Psychic, and it can use Psychic Seed to have a lot of special defense. You could run more defense on it. I've just found, for me personally, I like the extra special defense. Not only does it's more, I guess you could say, efficient if you actually use it, because it is 105 base versus 65, but also, even though most of the attacks are physical, there are a lot of attacks versus Indeedee. I think, I shouldn't say specifically, but a lot of the really high-powered moves are special. And if you're just trying to survive or set up Trick Room, I would prefer, like versus Goldango or whatever, to have more special defense to wall make it rain and such. Because the physical Pokemon you can intimidate, or they usually don't hit Indeedee as hard unless they super affect it with some sort of move. So either way is fine. I would run some speed with it. I just don't want to show the speed I would use and lead to speed creep, but you need at least 412 speed to outspeed the average Indeedee. And the greatest thing about Indeedee with Imprison is that since other Indeedees are so common, a lot more common than all these other Pokemon, you can imprison their other moves too. So you force them to not follow me, not just to not Trick Room. Well, they also can't use Imprison if you imprison them first. They can't use Psychic, so their Indeedee is pretty much shut down. And then you can have your ally focus in on their ally of Indeedee and get some kills you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Except you can't do that really in the same turn because it'll just follow me before you imprison them. But I'm talking about the following turns, you know. So their Indeedee probably will be forced to switch out or use some weak move like Dazzling Gleam. And I would use Psychic with this one because the most common move on Indeedee is Psychic, because Psychic is generally the best move, the best Psychic type move to use with Indeedee because it has the most power, 10 more power than Psych Shock. But me personally, I I prefer Psych Shock just a little bit if I'm also using another ally that benefits off of Psychic Surge like Hatterene, because it gives you the flexibility to hit Pokemon that have low defense with a Psych Shock, or if they have high special defense. I mean, high defense but low special defense, you can hit it with Psychic. Or even if they have about the same defense or special defense, Psychic is going to do the same or more. So versus like Sylveon, let's just say, obviously Psych Shock would be better. And then but I would just use this type of Indeedee. I've tested it a lot and it's very good. I kind of slapped it on before because I would run into Imprison being a problem, and Trick Room being a problem, and I would just imprison them. And the other great thing about Imprison Trick Room is you can stop their Trick Room, maintain the speed advantage, but also you can Trick Room if they set up Tailwind. So you can get the speed advantage a lot of times, and it's hard for them to kill you when you have like 200 and something special defense and max defense and max HP. So good luck unless you have a lot of super effective. They would probably have to double target it to kill it, because there's not a lot of physical moves that could one-shot this Indeedee besides maybe Kowtow Cleave from King Ambit, or not much, because they would have to use like a even Helping Hand, even Terrastall Bug Buzz from Volcarona wouldn't one-shot this. So on the special side, it's probably not going to be killed by anything. They would probably have to use like a Wave Crash and Rain, or a Choice Ban something, or whatever to one-shot it. So thanks for watching. Overall, I'll just rank these. First best is probably Indeedee. Second best is probably, it's hard to say because you may not have a team with Freg. You might want a different team with Gengar with Imprison Trick Room, but I don't recommend Gengar as much because it's not bulky enough. If it's a prediction war, they could just double target it. So I would prefer Indeedee, and then Freg is probably the second best one. And then again, it depends on what type of team you have. The thing is on a Rangaroo, it's like, would you really run Imprison? You would probably want them to have the Trick Room. So I normally wouldn't use Imprison with the Rangaroo. Frigg, kind of the same idea, but I still say probably Indeedee, then Frigg, and then maybe, it's hard to say which Pokemon's better, Miss Magius or Polteageist, but Miss Magius would have a lot more speed in general. It wouldn't have Strength Sap. So I'd say this is either probably third or fourth. And then Gengar's probably fifth. Or it could be better than that depending on what type of team you need it on. And Polteageist. No, I already said that one. Okay, so Rangaroo would probably be the worst one. Not because it's maybe the worst Pokemon out of all of these in general, but because you normally wouldn't run Imprison to counter them. You would let them set up Trick Room so you could send in your Torkoal or something, which is probably going to outspeed almost everything. Okay, so thanks for watching.